All right, top 10 players who are most likely to win Defensive Rookie of the Year in the 2023 season. The award would be announced in 2024. Interesting list. Let's just get into it. Starting off with number 10, the Green Bay Packers selected Lukas Van Ness in the middle of round 1 last year, or in the last draft, I should say. He is someone who, I do have to say, there's some of these players, I don't feel like there's a ton of players I feel like have a great chance. Kind of a weird defensive year where there's a lot of players I liked, but it's like for certain situations, and I'm not sure if you could win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think Lukas Van Ness is someone who should come in and do what he does pretty well right away. I just don't know if he's going to get the numbers to win it. I don't know if this is a guy who's going to come in and get like 10 sacks right away, which he might need to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. So it's possible he belongs on the list, I think. I just don't know how. And again, does play a position where you can rack up numbers, right? Like that's something we'll talk about later on. But certain positions, it's just more difficult to get a statistic that proves that you should win it. But for him, he does play a position where that can happen. I'm just not sure if he's going to be Defensive Rookie of the Year caliber in year 1. So he's at number 10. Number 9, Nolan Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles. They selected him late in the first round, and I think he'll be a good player for them. I think he'll come in right away and be someone who should be able to be a great speed pass rusher on the outside, and I do think there's a real chance he could rack up some sacks that way. One thing that concerns me about Smith is playing for Philadelphia, he's not going to get the high snap count that some other players are. So I think that he'll make the most of those opportunities. I could see it being a situation where you just don't get the opportunities and doesn't get the playing time to rack up the numbers, even if he's maybe like deserving of a Defensive Rookie of the Year. Maybe just doesn't win it due to the lack of like sacks, which is something a lot of voters look at. Number 8, the Lions' Brian Branch, who is not a first-round selection. I thought he should have been. I really like Brian Branch, and that's part of why I have him here. Now, him not being a first-round selection is going to just work. It's going to hold against him. It is. As a Tampa Bay fan, I'm still a little salty about Antoine Winfield not winning Defensive Rookie of the Year, the year that he could have won it. And part of it is because if you're a second-round pick, people don't pay as much attention to you early on, right? Because people don't talk about you as much. You don't get the clicks as talking about Will Anderson will get, right? And then it's hard for you to rack up the statistics. There's not a lot of great stats you can get unless you get a bunch of interceptions, which can be very fluky. But what I like about Branch is I think he can still make a good amount of splash plays. He is someone who is capable of doing stuff like that. And I think he could still, be a legitimately good player. And basically, the way that he would win Defensive Rookie of the Year is I think he legitimately could be the best Defensive Rookie of the Year, although that doesn't always give it to you. So, number 8. Number 7, Calijah Kancey of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, interior defensive lineman, who I think could be really good for them. I think he's a good pass rushing interior defensive lineman who could be a guy who can rack up statistics that way, especially playing next to Vita Vea. The issue and why I kind of have him a little bit lower is I think it might just take him some time to get NFL ready. I think he might be a bit more of a project guy, just in the sense of he's going to have to kind of learn how to go up against guys who are that much bigger than him. I think he'll figure it out. I'm just not sure exactly when, so that's why he's a bit lower. But there is a chance he could figure it out relatively quickly, and then he would have a chance to get the awards. So yeah, number 7. Number 6, Tyree Wilson, who wasn't my favorite prospect coming out of college, and that's probably why I'm a little bit lower on him than some other people would be. He is a little bit higher in the overall odds than I have him. I think that that's actually going to work for him in a way. The fact that people like him, and there were some, hot takes of him being the best edge rusher in the class. Some people had that take. So if he does come in and, do well, people are going to hype him up even more. That could stick in the voters' minds for sure. Again, is going to get a lot of playing time for the Raiders. And hey, going to get a play across Max Crosby. This is a good situation for Tyree Wilson. And so if he could come in and play well and maybe get like 8-9 sacks with his draft pedigree and the fact that he was drafted relatively early on, which again does matter, that's a real possibility of him being able to win it. I just don't know if he's going to come in and be great right away. I think it might be a little bit of a learning curve, similar to how I felt about Kancey. I think there might be a learning curve with him. He feels a bit raw, and I think it's going to take him some time, so he's at 6. Number 5 is Christian Gonzalez, and to be honest, the main concern I have with him isn't necessarily how I think he'll play. I think he'll play good. I think the Patriots will know how to coach him. He's a bit raw, but I trust Belichick to be able to coach him up. And his athleticism is so good, Sure, there's a chance it could be a bit of a project, could take him some time, but I think that, there's a chance of that with everyone. I like the idea of him playing well. The concern I have with him is just like, is a cornerback in the Bill Belichick scheme going to get that much attention? Typically, in general, it's really hard for corners to win the award. Yes, Sauce Gardner just did it, but he had one of the best rookie seasons of all time, so like that's a bit of an exception, and usually you have to be like that good to win the award, where it's like no question. Can Gonzalez do that year one? It's going to be tough, but there's a possibility of it as well, so that's why I still have him at number 5 on the list. I think he'll be really good right away, just will he get the attention is the question. In number 4 with Devon Witherspoon, it's very similar to how I feel about Gonzalez, where it's like, I think he's going to be good right away. I think he's going to fit that Seattle scheme incredibly well. I really trust that he can be good. It's just, will he get the attention? The reason why I have Witherspoon a little bit higher than Gonzalez is Gonzalez is going to have to play a lot of man coverage. He's going to have to play in these situations where he can't necessarily get the pass breakups and the interceptions the way someone playing in the Seattle scheme could. And so because of that, I think Witherspoon could he rack up some interceptions early on, and could that allow him to get into media attention? Yes. And because of that, that's how I could see him, again, not necessarily betting on Witherspoon being a better player, although I'm probably doing that too. I like Witherspoon a lot as a player, but it's also just a situation. Number 3, how's this for a hot take? Jack Campbell, who, listen, the Lions had 2 first-round picks. They made 2 very controversial decisions, and I have to say, spoiler alert if you haven't seen my offensive version of this, but I had Gibbs as a top 5 pick there, and I have Campbell as a top 3 pick here in terms of odds to win Rookie of the Year. Now, again, that's not the goal to win Rookie of the Year. It's to win the Super Bowl, and it's to get the most talent possible. But hey, it's some love for the Lions, as this is a bit of a hot take, I know, but I think Jack Campbell could come in right away and be a really good player, and that's why I have him so high on this list. I think he'll be a day one, not just starter, but like quality player. And could he be an 100 tackle guy? Sure. And like, I don't know. I kind of said it, but like, I don't know if this is the strongest defensive class in terms of guys who I feel like are going to be great year one. And because of that, if maybe the top 2 guys on my list underperform, could there be a scenario where Campbell has like 100 tackles and like gets like a couple interceptions and just plays like solid football, and if the Lions make the playoffs, gets enough attention that like he just wins the award because voters are aware of him? Yes, that's something that very much could happen, so that's why I have him at 3. Number 2, Jalen Carter, who, listen, there's a couple things actually working against him, I think. Though, again, I don't know how much people like him. I don't know how much people want him to succeed due to the off-the-field issues, and again, the voters are people, right? That's going to factor in. Also, again, like I said with Nolan Smith, the Eagles might not put him out there for as many snaps as other teams would. That being said, I think he's going to be really good. I think he's my favorite player, my favorite defensive player in this draft class, and I think he's very NFL ready. It's just the other stuff that knocks him out of the number 1 on my list thing. Number 1 is Will Anderson. Of course, it's Will Anderson. He's someone who I think is very NFL ready, and I think he's someone who could come in and have a very good season. Now, again, I don't feel as great about Will Anderson as I did about some of these other players, some of the other top prospects like of last year's draft class. I definitely would have had, my top 2 prospects last year were Aiden Hutchinson and Sauce Gardner. I think I would have both those guys over Anderson, even how I felt about them back then. But that being said, Will Anderson, I think, still deserves to be the number 1 pick. Very real chance. He was the first non-quarterback selected. I think people like him, and I think that if he can just rack up some stats, which he should be able to do, going to get a lot of playing time, I would think, and Houston should be able to make some stuff happen. So, yeah, that's my list. What's yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.